Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Edward Mitchell, the designer for Edict, now funding on Kickstarter. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Edward.
Hi everyone, I'm Edward Mitchell, the chief designer of Edict. It's a game launching on Kickstarter right now.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here, Edward, and just really ecstatic to have you. We have Scratchy Grimmins. He says he can't wait for this. So this is exciting to have Edward on the channel. And this is actually our first interview that we've had, kind of something like this for a designer. So really excited to dive in to your project, Edward, and excited to just learn about you and learn about Edict and what makes it special. So first off, let's go ahead and let's start with this very simple question. Who are you, Edward?
Well, I'm a student at Oxford University. I'm a graduate student studying for chemistry. And last year, my dad is my partner, we started to develop Edict. So we came together with Rookstone Games and started to develop it. And it started as a lockdown hobby during the UK lockdown, first one. And what became a hobby soon turned into a massive project. And that's how we have Edict.
That's fantastic. So definitely know a lot of people had a lot of stuff going on during lockdown. So this is great that you turn this time into something that you could really get behind. So now let's talk about Edict. So Edict is, how would you describe Edict in just one simple sentence? What would you tell us?
Near future space exploration. You are the leader of the biggest space race.
Perfect. All right. So in Edict, my leading question here for you is, what is the story of a player of a game?
So as a player, you take on one of these 5 mega organizations which have been licensed to go into the solar system and mine extraterrestrial resources in order to bring them back for humanity. So as the leader of an organization, you have to balance investing in technologies, hiring different executives through mission control, and accomplishing feats and goals in a race, in an effort to establish commercial dominance.
Fantastic. Commercial dominance, the ultimate goal of everything, yeah? So, great. Let's go ahead and jump into the main question that a lot of people might have on their mind is, what are the mechanics in this game? What is the game that's driving this fantastical experience?
So in Edict, it's a turn-based, 2 to 5 players, and each turn you have one of 4 options to choose in your mission control. So it's quite simple options, but each choice can have mass repercussions on what you do. Think scythe mechanics, sort of quite grounded in the game with miniatures moving around as you try and bring back your mine resources and bring them back, all whilst building up your engine. So it is an engine building game. But the engine is your mission control, so you're hiring new executives to fill in different roles. So it's a 4X game, but we coined it 4E because there's no extermination, there's exporting instead. So you explore, expand, exploit, and export resources back to Earth.
Perfect. Now, with that being said, what exactly does your game do differently besides this 4E? So I love that. The 4E is fantastic.
Well, we really wanted to root it in this sort of what-if scenario in the next 20 years. So we have some interesting components coming in. So there's a solar lathe, which is this calculator we have, it's reminiscent of an ancient astrolabe. So this allows for instantaneous travel across the solar system, dependent on fuel cost. So yeah, there's the image there, solar lathe. So we actually had an Oxford academic make this for us. It was a serendipitous meeting because I met him 3 weeks before the end of lockdown at a university bar. We got chatting, we became friends, and then I just randomly, I'll text him, see if he can help us with this, and he did. He loved the idea. He thought it was hilarious. We were trying to remake an ancient device from thousands of years ago for an in-game calculator.
This is so cool. So what exactly? How is this used during the game?
So normally you can move around on short routes across the solar system, or you can take a launch. So dependent on your flight director and your current level on the tech progression tree, you can use it you input your starting location and your destination, and it tells you the distance and the fuel cost. So imagine it's a cut around. Your opponents have slowly been heading out to Mars, and all of a sudden you swoop past them all the way to Saturn. So it adds a race element to the game.
That's super fascinating. Super fascinating. Awesome. All right. My next question for you is, as a backer of this campaign, what do I get? Why should I back right now?
Right now, we've just finished our first promotional early backer, which was a exclusive Space Y board, which is another organization. But right now we're we've hit our first 25%, which means we're slowly getting in the Ventures expansion pack. So if this was to go to retail, it wouldn't include the Ventures expansion pack. So this is it's good to back now. Ventures adds a sort of trading element to the game so one of the key components of Edict is the Edict card itself. The Edict is Earth's declaration and demand for resources.
Okay.
And so that fluctuates every Edict round. So every time someone returns enough resources, a new Edict is revealed. And so there's a price. Price is moving around. So there's an active market in the game. The Ventures expansion pack allows you to bet on the price fluctuations. So it's a bit of side money, and it brings in your chief financial officer, one of the executives you can introduce to mission control. It brings them in a different element.
Fantastic. So already have an expansion in the works, adds a new element to the game. Perfect. Now, what would you say is the complexity of this expansion? Would it be easy to throw in with the base game?
Oh yeah, definitely. It does add a couple extra politic cards and solar event cards, which tie in with the expansion, but it can be played very easily along with the main game.
Awesome. Fantastic. And we have a little comment by Ugo Bean. They say they love the solarable concept. And I have to agree. That's such a fascinating concept. And Redecker agrees the solarable is the best board game component he's ever seen. So I agree. This is really fascinating. An ancient calculator used for space travel. It's fantastic. Great concept. I love it. All right. Now let's talk about some specifics to the game. So what were your thought processes behind the different companies in this game? Because as you said, it's very unique where you're these different companies. Obviously, you have like Alizon here, that is probably your stand-in for Amazon. You have Space Y, which is SpaceX. Just tell us what were your ideas behind this?
So because we wanted to ground it in reality, we looked into the next 20 years and thought, who are going to be the biggest players in a privatized space race? So Alizon here is a merger between Alibaba, the huge Chinese retail group, and Amazon. And we already know Amazon is linked in with Blue Origin. It probably has its eye on space if there's a retail opportunity there. And so in the future, Alibaba merges with Amazon and becomes the biggest company on Earth. And so that's a playable organization.
Do you think you'll live to see this, this merger?
Maybe. It would be quite the shocker, really. It's like big rivals. But we actually have an extensive backstory written into our blogs on the website, which I very much encourage everyone to go read.
And we'll make sure to link that in the description at the end of this video so you can go check it out yourself as well.
Yeah. Kremlin Collective here. This is your sort of your classic Russian element in space travel. The Russians have a long history of space exploration, so they couldn't be left out of this one. As an organization, they have a political heavy agenda, which means they're probably the most dastardly organization to play as. But because it's not a conflict game, it's not too damaging to other players.
That's good. So a little bit of player interaction, but nothing totally devastating.
Yeah.
4E, right? 4E, not 4X.
Yeah. New concept.
Fantastic. So all of these have their own special feel. I love it. I love that grounded reality. Awesome.
Yeah. Here's LOPEC. That's based on OPEC, the oil giants. They have one last gamble, trying to make a new cartel in space. Instead of oil, just the resources of the solar system.
Perfect. Now, this other one, I just want to hear about your personal opinion. What components are your favorite in the game?
So I find it really satisfying. But we have this little cargo shuttle that once you mine a tile and you deplete it and put it into orbit, it slots into the cargo vessel and it scoots back home. It's probably one of my favorite little components. But we're also double boarding our mission controls, organization boards, so cubes don't rattle around, and so they're not falling out.
Oh, nice. So is it right here? Is it one of these cargo vessels, these little ships
Yeah,
here?
it's a cargo vessel. I think if you scroll down, there's pictures of the miniatures. The
Oh,
two
nice.
miniatures we have at the
Yeah, let's
moment.
take a look at the miniatures. So what were your ideas when creating the miniatures for the game?
So it was this trying
Oh, it's
to
adorable.
not to try and get it over sci-fi, to make it look as if this could be in the next 20 years based on current technology, but with a near future aspect to it. So the shuttle here, it's reminiscent of the old NASA space shuttle. That's how that was designed. We do have stretch goals planned for more miniatures to replace the extraction rigs, which we'd love to unlock.
And we have, it looks like lots of people also enjoy the miniatures. So we have Scratchy Grimans. He says he's been following a long time and he loves the miniatures in the games. I love how they slot in the components. I didn't notice that at first. That's super exciting. We have Hannah saying that she agrees with the Kremlin Collective. She plays them. And others just excited for that Solarable. Still high on it. Get in the game just for that. So super exciting. Love it. Awesome. And then how about mechanics wise? What are your favorite mechanics in the game?
Well, I mentioned the Edict card. So to win the game, you need to collect a variety of different ways of achieving victory points. One of the key aspects is solar credits, to the amount of money you have at the end of the game.
Okay.
But the market is changing for resources, but also on the currency exchange rate. So at the end of your game, your solar credits could be worth one solar credit is one victory point, or it could be five solar credits is one victory point. So you never know. You have to balance your strategy, and you can't go all in. Well, you could, but it's very risky. Um, so there's this element of trying to hedge your bets before the end of the game because the market is always fluctuating.
Fascinating. I love it. And I assume, obviously, the players are going to have a hand in how that market changes. So it's easy to kind of pivot how the game is going to end up.
No, actually,
Oh my gosh.
it's the last edict. So players will have maybe several turns to prepare at the last minute, but this means that you can't go too heavy on one strategy. You have to hedge your bets.
Kind of be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right. Now, the other thing that I wanted to know is I saw on the page that there's a soundtrack for the game. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we have a lot of promotional videos, and especially tied to all the organizations. And we met Scott online, and he's brilliant. He has a whole Discord feed, loads of music, and he was happy to share them with us, and epic soundtracks. Sort of, I guess, looking towards soundtrack, some of it, but then it's a lot more varied than that.
Perfect. So Scott Buckley, watch out. So if you have time after this, please check out their Kickstarter video and see if it's something that you'd enjoy gaming too. Fantastic. Awesome. Now, the other question that I had was about the main game board itself. So the main game board here it's pretty large. And I saw that there's ways that you can name specific planets on the board. And I think that's super fun. But I want to know about just the board as a whole, the propulsion tree, and just the layout itself. Can you tell me a little bit about it here?
So you have the board is split into two. You've got the inner system, which when you start, all the resources are revealed, they've already been discovered, and you get to, at the start, place where you go. But in the outer system, everything's hidden. And so that's Jupiter onwards. And you have to then explore and find the resources that you're after. In the design, we wanted it to inspire. I'm not sure if you remember being in science class at school and bored, looking around, seeing the map of the solar system. Like, wow, it's so epic. That sort of simple inspiration, like childhood inspiration, we wanted that to be the main focus of the board. Uh,
Oh, Edward, can you hear me okay? I think we've lost you for a little bit. If anybody's down in the comments, is everybody hearing me okay at least? Is it an issue on my end? Oh, Edward's frozen. Oh no. Okay. Oh, I think he's coming back. Edward, can we hear you?
I hope so. I can hear
All
you.
right, you're back. Reed Decker blames the satellites. All right. So you were in the middle of talking about how we are looking at these awesome maps of the solar system during science class.
Yeah, and that was the inspiration behind it. The sort of the inspiration and awe that you'd get looking at these maps whilst you daydreaming in science class. That's what we wanted the board to project into our players, sort of wonder. And so on the board, we have different elements. We have feats and goals. We have a propulsion tech tree as you invest in your capability to traverse the solar system. At the bottom, we have future technologies. So instead of just returning resources for money, you can choose to invest them and they have huge bonuses, but it's only if they're completed. And once one player starts to add to them, everyone normally rushes in to complete them because they're quite lucrative victory points by the end of the game. In the top corner, we have the colonial leadership and political influence. So this is quite a nice little mechanic. I like tying in elements. There's no discard pile. So once you've hired an executive and then you've hired another, you get a choice of whether you send them to be a colonial leader on some far-flung colony, maybe on Mars, or you can leave them on Earth to push your political agenda. And so there's two tracks to the left and right of those discard piles that go up during the game. And so you can get little bonuses and points from where you decide to put your executives once they're finished with.
That's so cool. I love the kind of like chain reactions of your actions. It reminds you of something Vital Lacerda might do if one thing leads to another, leads to another. It's very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in Edict, actually.
Awesome. That's really good to hear.
Yeah,
any other things to add on the board layout?
So right at the far-flung distance, I think right at the edge of the solar system is the Kuiper belt, the Keeper belt. And that's 10 tiles. If you're able to get there, you're probably going to find the resources or any solar events that you're after. And so that's kind of like a treasure chest at the end of the game that you can rush to. So it suits different play styles, whether you're going to exploration-heavy gameplay.
That's fantastic. Awesome. All right. Now, my last question for you are about the stretch goals. So what stretch goals here are you most excited for Edict?
So we haven't got all the stretch goals on display just yet, but the benches that we spoke about earlier, that's quite exciting. There's 25% unlocked there, and that's the expansion.
Gotcha.
But then we've got stretch goals that are planned for miniatures, replacing some wooden tokens. We've got different organizations coming in here. So we've got two here. That's PMC Combine and Utopia Extend. So there are backstories for each of these as well. And Utopia Extend is sort of this quasi-religious cult, essentially, that's spun out of Silicon Valley in the next 20 years, an internet-based society, and they prophesize that humanity will go to the stars, and so they have huge financial backing from their supporters, and they're granted a license to the Edict.
I've got to say, after listening to just you explain the kind of the rich lore in this, the backstories of these are amazing. I really want to go check out more of those backstory blogs. It's a great world you've crafted of this future that's not so distant. So really cool. And a couple of people in the comments here agree. We have Lydia. She says she's been reading them and really enjoys that story. We've got Scratchy Grimmins that agrees, really enjoys them. And then Tony wants to also say that, hey, she loves the board design, wants that poster so she can relive those Science Day feelings all the time. And we've got Reed Decker say green, that board is gorgeous. So lots of positive praise here, Edward. And I think that's all of the big questions that I had for you today. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap things up today?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned earlier, right now on Kickstarter, our pledge ups and our £1 pledge, for the £1 pledge, you can name a star in the game. So on the reverse side of the main board, we're going to print the board without all of the on-game furniture. And it is the poster array that I mentioned. And every £1 backer can name a star, and we'll print their names all over the board. And it's not just stars you can name. You can name asteroids and locations on all the planets. So at the start of the game, you could flip over one side and say, oh, look, this is my star. And then that's my asteroid. And then flip it over and play the game and purposely go out of your way to build a colony on your location on the planet. Yeah,
that's fantastic. It's a little bit more, real than owning a piece of the moon or something like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And one more comment here that I want to share. Rob, he says, an amazing amount of depth you've created here with the companies, everything, super impressive. And I think that shows in just the game as a whole. Super exciting. I love this world. I love everything about this. This is great, Edward. It's one that I really am excited to play, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything about Edict. And yeah, just really excited, really happy for you. And I hope this campaign goes extremely successful so that we can have more people playing Edict.
Thanks. That's good.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for coming on, Edward. If I guess we'll take some time right now. If anybody has any questions for Edward in the comments, please go ahead and ask away. We've got a bit of time here that we can take some questions and answers. So please take some time in the comments here. Let's go ahead and start with a question by Reed Decker. His question is, if this works, what's the final goal? Are you trying to get the game into the stores? As you said, that expansion might not be in retail, but if that becomes a possibility, will it show up in retail?
If we made it to that point, yeah, definitely. But of course, the Kickstarter is probably the best deal on getting the expansions in there. We would love, and we've thought a lot about having bigger expansions, maybe a sideboard that you can add on, and maybe even maybe that 4X would join the game. There might be an exterminate option for the aliens.
That's awesome. And the next question here we have is from Miss Wildfire. She's got a simple question, but one that's pretty important. How long does this game take to play? I know these large space exploration games, it could sometimes take a long amount of time. So what do you think?
Well, we've implemented a different way of adding game lengths to Edict. So depending on the number of Edict cards you play, so if you play with 6, it could be a short game, so that could be upwards of an hour to 90 minutes, or if you play a normal game, that's about 2 hours, 100 minutes to 2 hours. And then if you chuck in more Edict cards there at the start, you can have a marathon or an epic game, and you could really stretch an Edict game out to 5 hours, and you could play it over multiple days if you like. So yeah, we're gamers who love a big game, but also sometimes you just need to play a quick game. So
agreed. It sounds like it really tackles a lot of different groups, which I think is super nice. And Miss Wildfire has a second question for you. Is it suitable for a 14-year-old? What's the minimum age required, you think, to enjoy this game?
I think it's rated 12 and older. I think as long as a 12-year-old is familiar with the game, with gaming, it should be fine. A 14-year-old should be fine with this. Well, my sister's 14 and she played it with us and she was good.
Perfect. There we go. We got an example for you. So I hope those answer your questions, Miss Wildfire. And then one more comment on your modular game length. Reed Decker agrees that it's very clever. And I have to agree with you. I think that's a great system. I've seen a lot of games implement this modular objective system, or in your case, the Edict cards. So I think that's great. So if any other questions before we wrap up, once again, please leave them in the comments. Give a couple more seconds here, see if anything pops up. All right, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. So thank you so much, everybody who joined us in the comments. Great to have you on. Edward, super privileged to be able to talk to you and share your creative mind with everybody here on the Side Game channel. Thank you so much for checking in and for reaching out. This was fantastic.
Cheers, Mackenzie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Edward. Best of luck on the rest of the campaign. I really hope you fund. Take care, everybody. See ya. Side game strong, everybody. Bye.